All right, so you are not going to believe this.
What is it?
So get this, okay? Black and white television, 1955. And there's a British member of parliament just sitting there, right on screen, you know?
Okay.
He looks right into the camera and he says, I'm feeling perfectly fit at the moment, as sane as I ever am, and I'll take the drug now.
Wow.
He just took a psychedelic
On TV.
live.
Wow. Yeah, that's just incredible, isn't it?
It really is. It's so matter of fact.
No, it's not like some big
Yeah,
shocking thing or anything, you know.
It's wild, and it gets even wilder because a few minutes later, he's trying to describe what's happening, and he's like, and now I'm fairly lucid, Humphrey.
Oh, my goodness.
And then this huge pause, and he just stumbles over his words completely. He goes, I can't be certain that what's happening now to you. Now I'm back lucid again, and I see that the sentence I meant to say can't be said.
Wow.
It's like weirdly funny.
It is.
But also makes you think a lot.
It really does kind of give you a sense of how psychedelics were viewed at the time.
Yeah.
You know,
Fascinating.
legal and seen as like a really promising area.
In both the U.S. and the U.K.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
This was like a legitimate area of like medical research and exploration, you know?
Yeah, it's like totally different from how we think about it now.
Completely.
You've come to us with all these sources, you know, wanting to understand this whole like evolution of psychedelics. And I think this is the perfect place to kind of start diving into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how did we get from that moment on TV to like the war on drugs and now this whole resurgence of interest in psychedelics for therapeutic use?
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to kind of unpack this whole journey for you.
Awesome.
You know, you've been looking into the history, all this current research, and we want to try to paint like a really clear picture of just how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of set the stage right by acknowledging that our perception of these substances has changed so dramatically over time.
For sure. And, you know, for the longest time, psychedelics were like this huge taboo.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It was all like, this is your brain on drugs and all this fear mongering. And now it's like magic mushrooms and dropping acid.
I know.
Could be legal pretty soon.
It's crazy how things have shifted.
It is wild.
So let's maybe start by going back to those early days.
Yeah, okay, so imagine this. It's the mid-20th century, and psychedelics are not only legal,
Right.
they're actually seen as this, like, really exciting area of medical research.
That MP we heard about
Yeah.
casually taking a psychedelic on live TV that wasn't some kind of rebellious act or anything.
Yeah.
It really reflected like this genuine scientific curiosity
Yeah.
and a sense of possibility about these substances.
And, you know, it wasn't just like a Western thing.
No, not at all.
So many cultures have used psychedelics
Right.
in spiritual and religious rituals for centuries,
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, think about psilocybin mushrooms or peyote. Yeah.
which has been used by the Maya and Aztec people.
For so long.
I mean, they weren't using those for recreation.
Yeah, they're part of their
Yeah.
understanding of the world, you know?
Exactly. And some of those traditions are actually still practiced today.
It's wild, right?
It is, isn't it?
Like even LSD,
I know.
which later became so like associated with the counterculture,
Right.
it was actually being given to doctors in the early 1900s for experimentation.
They were just sending it out
I know.
to see what would happen.
It's crazy. And then
The 60s happened.
the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Like spiritual enlightenment, summer of love, the whole hippie movement.
Yeah, psychedelics became really intertwined with this massive, like, cultural and social shift.
Yeah. And then things started to like really change, didn't they?
They did.
I mean, some people saw like this expanded consciousness and
Right.
personal growth.
Yeah. And then there were others who just saw chaos
Yeah.
and social upheaval,
Yeah,
you know, and the media started to reflect that growing concern
for sure.
with more and more negative headlines,
Yeah.
which just fueled public anxiety and fear.
And that really set the stage for the war on drugs, didn't it?
It did.
There's this one quote that I remember that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Psychedelics, the most dangerous drug that has ever come upon the market, with tragic, if not fatal, consequences.
Wow. That's a pretty far cry from,
Yeah.
you know, an MP taking one on live TV.
I know, it's a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
And that fear that was being kind of like, you know,
Amplified.
yeah, amplified by the media and all this stuff really paved the way for the war on drugs, which totally changed drug policy in the U.S. and it basically shut down almost all psychedelic research.
Yeah, and it's so important to understand that the decision to classify these drugs as Schedule I substances wasn't based on some overwhelming scientific consensus.
No.
I mean, early research actually showed some promise in certain areas.
Exactly. But that whole socio-political climate at the time.
Yeah, it really influenced the decision to basically halt research and criminalize these substances.
It's like schedule doesn't just mean they're illegal.
Right.
It means the government thinks they have no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse.
Yeah.
Which makes research incredibly difficult.
Like almost impossible.
Right. And it really had a chilling effect on the field.
Definitely. And it's kind of interesting how that narrative might have influenced some of the research that did happen during that time.
Oh, yeah. How so?
So there's that whole story about that ecstasy study.
With the monkeys.
Yes. Where they ended up accidentally giving the monkeys meth instead of ecstasy.
Oh, no.
And they concluded that ecstasy caused permanent brain damage after just one use.
Oh, my goodness.
And this was published in like a major scientific journal.
And then retracted, right?
Yeah. But it's wild because it really shows how easily bias can creep in and skew our understanding of things.
Totally. And that retracted study,
I know.
it had a lasting impact on public perception of psychedelics.
For decades.
It really did. It really put psychedelic research on hold for a really long time.
But luckily, the story doesn't end there.
Thank goodness.
Right. In recent decades, there's been this huge resurgence of interest in psychedelics.
Yes.
And their potential.
Absolutely. And what's really fascinating is we're seeing studies showing potential therapeutic applications for conditions that affect millions of people.
Yes, like depression, PTSD, anxiety, addiction.
And what are some of the findings that have stood out to you in this new wave of research?
Well, there's that study in the Journal of Psychopharmacology that showed that just one high dose of psilocybin significantly relieved anxiety and depression in cancer patients. And the effects lasted for 6 months.
Wow.
I know, it's pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the study in Nature on MDMA for PTSD, where 2/3 of the patients treated no longer met the criteria for PTSD after the treatment.
2/3.
2/3.
That's incredible.
It's huge. I mean, I know it can sound a little unbelievable.
I mean, it's understandable to be skeptical. We've been told for so long that these drugs are dangerous.
Yeah.
But the evidence is really starting to mount.
It is. And what's really fascinating is that researchers are starting to understand why these substances might be so effective.
Yeah. How so?
Well, it seems that they can actually change the connections between brain cells in really profound ways.
So are you saying that like one dose of psilocybin or MDMA can actually rewire the brain?
It seems like it might be possible.
That's incredible.
It's amazing. It's like they kind of create this temporary window of like enhanced neuroplasticity where the brain can form new connections and kind of rewire how it processes emotions, memories, and desires.
It's like hitting a reset button.
Yeah, almost. And that's what's so groundbreaking about this research. It's not just that these substances might work, it's that they might actually be able to fundamentally change the way the brain functions.
It's like blasting people out of those ruts.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But it is really important to remember that these drugs aren't a magic bullet. And they're definitely not for everyone.
Right.
There are risks involved.
Definitely. And what are some of the risks that people should be aware of?
What research suggests there's a potential risk of triggering manic or psychotic episodes in people who have a family history of schizophrenia or other mental health conditions.
Okay, so careful screening
Yep.
and medical supervision
Must.
are essential.
Very important. So that kind of leads into the question of what legalization might actually look like.
Yeah, because it's not just going to be like everybody can have access to these substances, right?
Right. It's going to be a process.
Absolutely. And how do you think that process might unfold?
Well, based on what we're seeing now, it seems like the focus is going to be on medical use under really strict supervision.
Okay, so similar to how other medications are regulated.
Right. We might be looking at FDA approval for MDMA for PTSD in the next year or two,
Wow.
and psilocybin for certain conditions maybe a couple of years after that.
And what about the model for how this would actually work?
It seems like it's leaning towards a model where you would go to a certified clinic.
Okay.
You'd have therapists guiding the experience.
So not just someone taking these substances on their own.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not. And the therapy component seems to be really crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not just about the drug itself, right?
No, it's about the whole experience, the preparation, the support during the trip, the integration afterwards.
Right. It's about providing a safe and supportive environment for people to have these potentially transformative experiences.
Exactly. And we've also seen some interesting developments at the state level.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Oregon and Colorado have both decriminalized psilocybin
Okay.
and are working on setting up licensed healing centers.
So it seems like the emphasis is on controlled supervised access.
Yeah, for therapeutic purposes.
Not just recreational use.
Right.
And what do you think all of this means for our listeners who are curious about the potential of legal psychedelics?
Well, it seems like the most immediate impact could be the development of new and potentially very effective treatments for conditions like PTSD and major depressive disorder.
Yeah, that's huge because these conditions affect so many people.
They do, and it really underscores the importance of basing our regulations and our understanding of these substances on science and not on outdated fears or hype.
Right. We've seen the consequences of letting fear drive policy in the past.
Absolutely. And ultimately, this whole journey that we've talked about, from legal medical research to prohibition and now back to this potential therapeutic use, it really highlights our kind of evolving relationship with substances that can profoundly affect the human mind.
It's like a mirror reflecting our own understanding of consciousness, mental health, and the complex interplay between individuals and society.
Yes. And as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
The history of psychedelics is really a story of trying to control something we didn't fully understand. And that led to decades of lost potential for research and development. Now we have this incredible opportunity to take a more informed science-based approach. So what does it mean for us if we can move past that fear and really embrace the potential of these powerful tools to help people and to unlock deeper insights into the human mind?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
It's something to really think about.